Hello, I'm Chip Pickering. I'm the CEO of INCOMPAS, and I'm here with my good friend Mignon in Columbus, Ohio, Conference of Mayors, talking about competition, speed, affordability, to bring broadband to every American, to every city, to every town, to every farm and business. So we're in Columbus, Ohio.
U.S. Conference of Mayors.
And this is the third phase of a major campaign that you and I have been the co-chairs. The first was to get Congress to act, to provide the resources, the money, the funding that would connect every American to high-speed, good, affordable service.
And Chip, with a lot of help, especially from mayors and those in local communities, we're here with a success story, a legislative success story that is bringing a lot of economic oxygen to these communities. However, it's going to take more than oxygen to get these infrastructure projects built. It's going to take us creative partnerships. It's going to take great planning.
Yeah, we had a great conversation on a panel this morning with Crown Castle, Google Fiber, but the mayors were just amazing. They talked about the practices, the best practices, the best technologies, the checklist that would give their cities not only fast broadband, but to get it as fast as possible. Congress has acted to bring the resources to make this dream a reality. We've worked closely with the Commerce Department and Alan Davidson to get the right guidance. Now it's where broadband hits the road, attaches to the poles, crosses the tracks.
And Chip, you're right. Finally, we have the resources to build it. And they will only come if these networks are affordable. So affordability is key. We cannot leave that. It cannot be an afterthought. We cannot leave that on the table. And that starts at the beginning in terms of these infrastructures being able to go into places where the business case can be made, where it's affordable to build them, and it's affordable to be able to connect to them. People were listening to each other, listening to best practices, listening to other examples in other places as to how they streamline permitting and other needs that you would have to make sure that these critical infrastructure developments come to their communities.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to the panel, and I want to thank everyone for being here and Crown Castle for their sponsorship of this morning.
I don't think I'm over-exaggerating by saying, and I've practiced telecom law for 20 years around the United States, local governments are the most important and critical piece of this, because you can have the best policy in the world, but if you don't have the permitting and you can't build the infrastructure, this isn't going to happen.
The name of this is Ready, Set, Connect, right? Ready, Set, Go. Or you can say, hey, you have shitty internet, what can I do about it? That's what we're going to talk about. So it's an economic imperative for us to have connectivity. If we don't have connectivity, we can't deliver Christmas on time across America. If we don't have connectivity, it's hard to retain emerging industries. Long Beach is home to Space Beach, one of the fastest growing emerging space sectors in the United States. And it's an issue of national security for us. I just met with the new White House cyber director, and we toured the port and we toured Space Beach. And one of the most significant topics is connectivity. You know, I don't want to, as a mayor, go to a company who's having a difficult time connecting and talk to them about how we can retain those services or retain that economic activity in our city. I want to get ahead of it, right? And so the things that we have to do is make sure that we sort of get out of the way and make it easy. So it's easy, it's fast, it's predictable to do business in the city. Long Beach is an oil province for the last 100 years. Well, as California is moving away from the production of fossil fuels, we have to figure out how to grow our economy in new directions, investing in 5 key growth sectors. So space is one of them, ports, tourism, healthcare, education. All of that is connected to how we are able to deploy connectivity across our city. So here are some of the things that we did. It started by really establishing a shared vision and long-term plan to help modernize our infrastructure. The permitting stuff is really where the rubber meets the road. If we could just figure out how to be more efficient, it really benefits everyone. We've done public-private partnership agreements with individuals, companies that deploy infrastructure. And we've done advanced sort of annual maintenance and permitting and agreements. And what that does, it reduces administrative strain while our city's dealing with, COVID emergencies and homelessness. We dedicate staff to act as a liaison so you have a single point of contact. We'll get applications and batch them together and say, give me 10 at a time. And we can process 10, and this is how long it takes to process 10. We'll simplify our application and make the submittal digital. We will coordinate and simplify our review and our approvals so we avoid conflicts with other departments. Having one smooth process, you can sort of establish a shot clock to make sure that everyone knows you have this much time to move it to the next step and get the job done. We have the ability to schedule bi-weekly or monthly calls with providers and city staff to anticipate what's happening. And all of these things really help our city. You plan your work, you plan. It's the unsexy stuff that allows us to continue to be leaders.
If you haven't heard of Glendale, Arizona, you might have heard of the Super Bowl. The 5G that was put in for Super Bowl 57 was at that time the most advanced 5G network in the country, and that's critical to our public safety. Public safety is so important. The bad guys only have to get it right one time. Our public safety has to be right 100% of the time, and that's where this becomes so critical. You can't take the chance when you're putting on an event as big as the Super Bowl. We have to make it available for the providers, and at the same time we have to be good partners. Permitting is something that we've really spent a lot of time to try to make sure that we make it as easy as possible. If a large company wants to come to Glendale and they need to get in the ground quickly, we'll give them the chance to go ahead and start digging tomorrow if that's what they want to do. Understanding that if they do something wrong, they're going to have to fix it.
Over the last 15 years, we've had incredible city partners working with us to go through these, streamlined permitting processes. And so I wanted to highlight a few examples of cities that are here at the conference this weekend with us who have done some exceptional work in their cities to bring a company like Google Fiber in to be able to offer high-speed connectivity for all residents. Mayor Giles in Mesa, they have been really wonderful to work with when it comes to innovation. Microtrenching is a style of putting internet into the ground. What you're seeing here serves 48 homes, just in what you're seeing right here. Fiber is as thin as the hair on your head. Because we've brought the technology to be so small, and so we're able to make thinner cuts and have less backfill, which means it's quicker, it's less disruptive to the residents. And it also means Google Fiber is going to be deploying 8 gig in his community as the first city in that area to have high-speed residential access at the 8 gig mark. As you guys know, there's lots of different competing interests, and in Arizona particularly, water is huge. If you're owning the water rights, you're really important there. And so what we've had to do is, in relation with the water, the mayor has been a really good convener and bringing in, the water folks and the builders and saying, all right, we all have a shared goal here. We want more internet access to our communities. How can we work through this together? And I think that's a really wonderful way that mayors can help here, is being the convener and saying, all right, we have a shared goal, let's hammer this out together. Another excellent example is Des Moines, Iowa. Their application process for permitting is all online, and it's very clear exactly what they want to see from us. And so that's been really helpful when we are putting together these large permitting packets for infrastructure in your communities.
Crown Castle is a shared infrastructure company. We own 40,000 towers, about 125,000 small cells, and about 80,000 route miles of fiber throughout the country. And so we are in the process of probably deploying one or more of those throughout your communities. Talking through the checklist, I think sort of what the most compelling, portion of this is that it helps us to invest in your communities. I think in order to sort of round out the complement, we've put these 5 points together, and I think it will be really helpful in sort of thinking through what is sort of the next generation for our permitting, for our just the feel of what's going on in our community, so that we can help with the investments and help facilitate that. Whether it's grant dollars, whether it's private investment, we think that it's really critical that we're able to maximize the impact on your community. And so that's kind of what Broadband Money for Broadband Projects stands for. Streamline for speed, I think the ability to talk to you, to have that dialogue, and to understand what it is we're trying to achieve. We understand, hopefully through that dialogue, what it is that your concerns are, and we work together to a really, really positive outcome. Transparent review, I think that this one is just the foundation of what we're trying to drive to. So, as Ariane was saying, I think as Mayor Richardson was saying, understanding on paper or through other communication ahead of time, and I think published is certainly the best way to do it. It's a best practice. But understanding what all of the requirements are going to be so that I can make sure I'm going to tick off each of those boxes as I submit an application to you. And that's it. There are no surprises. That really helps facilitate. When we talk about, okay, what are our design guidelines? What would we like small cells to look like in our communities? Understanding that there needs to be a bit of flexibility based on carrier preferences, based on what this equipment looks like, the fact that it's going to evolve over time is really critical. So we are trying to make sure that more than one carrier can co-locate on that same infrastructure. And so what that does is helps us, it may be a little bigger profile than what a single carrier solution may look like, but it certainly helps with non-proliferation of additional structures in your right-of-way. So flexibility in some of those standards and understanding that in certain instances companies may want to allow more than one carrier to co-locate on their facilities is something that we very much appreciate. Innovation. Ariane talked a little bit about innovation in general. Mayor Wires and Mayor Richardson have been shining examples of embracing innovation. So what does that mean? It means additional flexibility. It means being adventurous, knowing and understanding that if it doesn't work properly, we will make it right for you. We just need you to be able to experiment hand in hand with us and to ensure that you're going to be getting the service that you need and that your community is going to enjoy consistently over time. And I think smart restoration practices is sort of an output of broadband money for broadband projects in certain ways. We want to make sure that the restoration that's being required is commensurate with the whatever we're doing in the right-of-way so that the investment can go further. So for instance, if the restoration requirements are far too onerous, for instance, I'm not going to be, as a company, able to invest as much in the network. I'm only going to invest probably a smaller portion in the network because a certain portion of those dollars are going to be going toward restoration.
And because it's cheap, you can lay down redundancy. If something happens, you have backup fiber now, and you don't have to tear up the street.
If you have the foundations in place, you'll be ready for that next generation of technology and whatnot in your future.
You know, there was a jewel that Becky mentioned, and I want to underscore it for you mayors. Co-location is a good thing for you. Co-location means rather than having different carriers all submitting applications and competing, you can say, look, we prioritize co-location. If we can get two carriers on the same light pole, on the same infrastructure, because I think in most cases you can get 3 or 4 carriers together if they play well in the sandbox. We have to allow people to understand that it is not just a good to have, it is an economic imperative for the big and for the small. Well, we have 4 or 5 command and control, privately held commercial command and control centers in the city of Long Beach that are monitoring launches and satellites, eventually deep space vessels. We're producing the first commercial space station in Long Beach. If we're gonna be able to support that big economic investment and growth, we have to have connectivity. You gotta explain that to your residents. And on the other hand, the small. During the pandemic, we all saw the trends of working from home and going to school from home. And we know that There's an economic divide on having the ability to afford broadband or Wi-Fi in your home, and so you had folks going to the park to utilize park Wi-Fi or parking outside the McDonald's to use the free Wi-Fi. Three things I would just say, because there was a lot up here. I was just sitting here like, if I'm the mayor and I didn't work in the telecommunication industry, what is my takeaway? Here's what I would say. You may have a planning commission or a council member that may say, we don't like small cell. These giant refrigerators on a strand, that, a giant microwave on a strand, of fiber, outside of someone's home. It's changed. The technology is always changing. Take a look, ask for a demonstration. Come see what it actually looks like. It's more like a Quaker Oats canister now, right? That you can get connectivity in your community. I would also say, ask about things like micro trench standards. You don't have to open a full trench anymore to deploy fiber. Fiber is only this big. Why do you need to open a giant trench? Ask about micro trench standards. Bring it forward in your city. Blanket term permits. They all look the same. All of the infrastructure is the very same. So instead of approving 15 applications of the very same thing, approve the design and have a blanket approval process. You get your fees into your city, so that's functional. You're able to hire your staff and have cost recovery, but you're able to deploy more efficiently.
You have to make it to where it's worthwhile for them. You can't be so expensive that they couldn't afford to do it. It's a business decision.
Make sure you're embracing sort of an all of the above strategy. This is sort of why we always talk about flexibility, because these technologies are innovative and because they're emerging on such a rapid basis. Being able to be open to employing new technologies is really important. And standards, unfortunately, are not one size fits all, and they're not static. And so we have to continue to sort of evolve and be open to utilizing the sort of the newest technologies in order to make sure that connectivity actually happens.
I want to really thank the Mayor's Conference for helping us in the legislative process. Y'all came in at a critical time and endorsed the Bridge Act, and it made a huge difference. As we go through this next stage, we want to make sure that the best practices and the best technology, that we share the best information. And I just want to thank everybody for being here today, and I want to thank everyone on the panel.